Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University, and welcome to Outrider 6, Managing the Power Differential between PhD supervisors and students. This Outrider comes via request from a student who's going through quite a difficult pathway at the moment. She describes herself as being quote-unquote bossed around, bullied, and she comes home at the end of each day, sits on her bed and simply sobs and is crying. And obviously I'm working with her one-on-one to try and create strategies out of this pretty appalling situation. But she did suggest that this was a great topic for an Outrider. And I agree with her. So to enact this Outrider this week, I'm going to present two stories. They're my stories to tell, so I'm going to tell them. And then we're going to follow with Tara's 10 tips. So if you're in a bit of a problematic situation at the moment in terms of power and your relationship with your supervisor or advisor, there may be something in our gig today that will help you today and help you tomorrow. But let's get into the first of these two stories. In one of my former jobs, I was in one of those posh research committees, right? And so the big posh people in the university research community were discussing metrics and visions and strategies and so forth. And at one point in the meeting, there was a discussion about higher degree students, and that higher degree students were requesting some employment support, some teaching support, and some publication support. And these comments were made, and then this appalling derisive laughter emerged in response to these requests. And one of these posh leaders, had to be a woman, didn't it? Yeah, said and described higher degree students as quote unquote slaves. And this word sort of bounced around the room for a little while, and then this appalling, cruel laughter emerged in response to the word slaves. Story 1. Let's move to story 2. I was an institutional leader in the United Kingdom formulating the institutional entry for the research assessment exercise, the RAE. And the RAE was monitoring 3 particular variables. So from particular academics, their publications, their esteem indicators, this was before impact and engagement, their esteem indicators, but also the number of PhD students that they supervised and the number of completions for each individual staff member. And in this institution, there was a stunning result. Stunning. The big deal researchers, look at me, look at me, look at me. The big deal researchers with all the esteem indicators and the publications were poor supervisors. They attracted few students and they completed even fewer. Now, when this metric was put up on a PowerPoint slide and projected, there was this incredible silence and horror around the room. And I remember the silence in response to this table, that all these supposedly great researchers, look me, all these fantastic researchers were dreadful higher degree supervisors. Now, that was only one institution, but can I say it was a comprehensive university and all disciplines were represented. The assumption, therefore, that great researchers, as assessed by particular metrics, are also great higher degree supervisors was proven to be wrong. Wrong. Now, we're going to return to this, but just remember that as a data point. The supposedly high-profile researchers are not good supervisors. Okay, why? Now, I'm going to provide a context around those two stories that I started off our Outrider today. And I want to improve and enhance the relationship between students and supervisors and address the power differential if I can. Now, please remember 40% of students end with a different supervisory panel from the one they started with. So changing supervisors is reasonably common. It's a catastrophic, very serious decision that you make, but a lot of people make it. So let's talk through the initiatives and strategies you can implement before you change supervisors. So at least when you make a decision, you're making it with all the facts, having tried a series of options. Okay, let's go for it. 1, it's never too late to begin again. Assumptions kill doctorates. Assumptions kill doctorates. And when students and supervisors arrive into a supervisory relationship with different attitudes and ideas towards how meetings are run, what's a good outcome, getting time and tasks organised and oriented, then trouble emerges. And there's no doubt in particular disciplines, a lot of academics are almost evangelically connected to particular methodologies, tropes and theories. Grounded theory, anyone? Grounded theory, anyone? And so endlessly, the supervisor says, well, this is the way, this is the method, this is the way, this is the method, this is the strategy, and there are no other options. Okay, so as you can see, when you've got sort of evangelical assumptions in this way, a clash between a student and a supervisor may occur. But it's never too late to begin again. And what I've done in creating the Outrider this week is I've also created a 2-page document that I'll link to in our references at the end that provides discussion points to rejuvenate the relationship. So if you're just about to start an enrolment, then this is a great time to discuss these assumptions. If you're in a bit of a bad situation, then don't panic. Use my 2-pager to start to freshen up and revision this relationship. And I've also produced through my career, I've actually used it for about 20 years, a 30-page document that I get my students to fill in before they start their enrolment so that we can have that negotiation and talk through our assumptions both ways and come up with a third way for making this situation work. And I'll also link to that 30-page document as well. So if things are dreadful, then you know what? Front up and ask your supervisor, say, look, things are not going well. Can we sort of have a conversation about how this candidature will progress? And use my 2 pages to say, let's talk through a series of options and try and make this better. And invariably, so many supervisors will say, yes, let's do that. So be honest, be robust, and discuss those assumptions. 2, pull in your Dean of Graduate Studies or Dean of Graduate Research early as a mediator. Students, all of us as humans, we leave problems too long. We leave problems to fester. She'll be right, he'll be right, he'll be right. Now, it's never all right. We know that. It's never all right. If there's a problem, unless you address the problem, it's not going to go away. And relationships matter so much. They must be respected, they must be cared for, they must be nurtured. And if your supervisory relationship is getting a bit weird, it's getting a bit frightening, then come and see me or my international equivalent nice and early. For our international colleagues, go and see your Dean of Graduate Studies nice and quickly. Now, people in my sort of job, we are wise, we are old, we are beaten up. Everything that could have happened, we've seen. We've seen stuff that would make Hugh Hefner, even dead Hugh Hefner, blush. We know policy, we know procedure, and we've got a fair number of strategies for most situations to make it better, okay? So see us early. Now, the point about my role is that if you give us information, the information you give me is confidential until you tell me what you would like to do with it. Okay, so conversely, I can give you advice about how to handle the situation and improve the relationship on your own, but I can also have that mediation role, and it works very well, can I say. Can be a bit uncomfortable, but Experienced people can get everybody nice and relaxed. And what happens is I see the students separately, I see the supervisor or advisor separately, and then we have this conversation where we configure a new way of working where everybody's safe, no name calling, and we just move forward together. And that breaks the tension, it protects the student, it creates no judgment around the supervisor and creates resolutions. So before you change supervisors, why not have a go and use your Dean of Graduate Studies to create a different way of working? Okay, 3, oh yes, so important, maintain a strong and strict demarcation between your personal life and your professional life. We're at number 3, we're now moving to the more frightening, bullying, aggressive, worrying supervisors, okay? And so this is beyond the people who are a bit inexperienced, a bit busy, okay, and just a bit careless. So a key strategy for all of us in managing our lives is to separate the personal and the professional very, very clearly. Now, the really dreadful, frightening supervisors and advisors that I know, and I've known a lot of them, really hate me when I give this bit of advice, okay? And they do name calling and all sorts of stuff about me because this is the way that you stop bullying supervisors. So I get a lot of grief from pretty dreadful supervisors over this one. So that's probably a pretty important indicator that this one matters. Now, if people want to control you, if they want to handle you, if they want to manage you, then they need information about you and your personal life. So this is where the supervisors, want to have a drink in the pub after a seminar, want to have a cup of coffee, invite you round to their place for a barbecue, all this sort of stuff. And they're therefore creating the pathways for you to share your emotional life and distresses and problems. Now, they need to manipulate and use your private life to gain control over you and to undermine you. I've been very clear for 20 years, that I separate out my public and my private life. Now, I came up with this strategy and I started doing this about 2001 because I was a very junior academic in a very toxic environment and I could see all the very senior professors behaving disgracefully and they were using and leveraging people's private lives against them. So predatory people tend to use other people's personal life to hurt them. Right. The single best strategy you can implement today is starve your supervisor, starve the people who have control over you and power over you in your life, starve them of personal information about you. Your supervisor is not your friend, not your parent, and certainly not your partner. They do not need to know anything about you outside of your working life. And if they press you for personal information, you have to ask yourself, why do you think they are doing that? Why are they interested in your personal life or your private life? It is none of their business. Therefore, when you're trying to reorganize the power relationship between a supervisor and a student, keep your private matters private, separate ruthlessly personal stuff from professional stuff. Now, when you do this, you starve them of information and you radically alter the power relationship. I've done it for 20 years, works incredibly well. 4, formalise the contact between you and your supervisor in meetings and through communication systems. Now, I know for a lot of you, even seeing your supervisor can be a bit of a problem. I get that. But supervisor relationships, when they become informal and chaotic and ad hoc, the person in power, through that chaos, increases in their power. Important one. So your supervisor, when it's all a bit chaotic, can assume that you are sort of their slave and you're there to serve them, and that They can drop in any time to see you, they can phone you or send you a text message anytime, or send you a WhatsApp gig. What is that even about? This stuff needs to stop. Because the moment somebody sends you a text message or calls you, you know what they're doing? They're assuming that your time is less valuable than their time, and they can intervene in your time because you're less important than they are. So formalise your meeting with your supervisor. I have weekly meetings with my students every week, 30 minutes. They're calm, they're relaxed, they're fun sessions, lots of laughter, and I prepare. Students send me stuff, I prepare, send work back to them with formal emails and so forth, and we have a great relationship, and the students finish in 3 years. And all of that comes from respecting a student. I know my students are busy, they have their own family, their own friends, they're working incredibly hard. I respect their time. Their time is as valuable as mine. There's not a hierarchy there. They're not worse, I'm not better or greater than them. We are human beings, and I respect their time. I would never ask them to drop or change anything to be of service to me. That's not right. But for 30 minutes every week, we have a professional relationship. And these students finish quickly and they finish well. And that's because there is a bounded professional relationship. It ensures respect through time and enables a recalibration of a professional relationship. Great. 5. Oh yeah. 5, we have to be confident in our power to give some away. We're now moving to the really serious power imbalances, right, that create profound damage, create profound hurt, inconvenience, discomfort, weirdness, which is also problematic. And to move to the difficult stuff, we're going to discuss how power operates in these relationships. Now, through my life, I taught this maxim through a course, but through my life, I've maintained the maxim, we must be confident in our power to give some away. In other words, we have to be sure of ourselves, professionally balanced, confident, to not have to or want control over other people. To be able to welcome alternative views, opinions, and arguments requires a certain amount of confidence. And I think we see this brittleness, for example, during British colonisation, where the British sort of moved around the world and just ignored and erased Indigenous languages, Indigenous faith structures, Indigenous family structures, just sort of forgot about them. And think about the brittleness of the power that would be required to declare Australia terra nullius, right? There's these fantastic, brilliant, organised human beings, and yet the only way that power can be organised through this colonisation is to pretend that those human beings are not there, right? You've got to be confident in your power to give some away. So think about how this operates in doctoral supervision. And remember my early story about those supposedly esteemed researchers who were pretty rubbish supervisors. Being an academic right now is dreadful. I'm just not going to pretty this up for you. And tenure and permanence means nothing. We're all the precariat now. And as you've seen with me over the last few years, we move our lives, our families, we move into really difficult environments, and we just have to sort of respond to the chaos and the confusion and the weirdness around us and do the best we can. As an academic, we really have to accept this impermanence in this chaos, and we just have to sort of accept that every day is going to be like that, and we just sort of get on with it, or we sort of become overconfident and brittle in the power that we hold, and we activate a pecking order. So even though our power feels very brittle, we sort of perform that power over the people that are, inverted commas, under us in the pecking order. So when academics are treated like rubbish, and we are, it's amazing how many academics then proceed to treat colleagues like rubbish, treat students like rubbish, and treat our professional staff like rubbish. Because, if you're lacking power, then you try and perform that power over others. Now, I'm not justifying this behaviour at all. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. But it does help us, I think, understand what's going on. Our universities in their entire history have not been as unstable as they are right now. And if academics can't manage this instability and they're stressed, and they're angry, and I understand that, then one strategy is to manage and perform the power that they hold by ridiculing and demeaning others. You've heard me talk so often, and I'm writing about it at the moment, you've heard me talk about brittle leadership. The word brittle is important. So you've got the title, you've got the posh office, you've got the car, but deep down inside, you know you're a pretender. And what do you do with that information? How does that impact on your daily life? And that means that these particular leaders break rather than bend under the stress and abuse others. So we are seeing brittle supervisors. They just can't manage the stress of the new academic order, and I understand that. It is appalling and it is dreadful, but I want you to understand what's happening so you can put a context around this situation. And this understanding of what is happening to academics around the world might help you manage this situation. Okay, 6. Oh yeah, we start to turn to you. Don't wait for permission to be successful. Most of our institutions and people working in schools and universities in particular tend to be a bit selfish and self-absorbed. So many leaders, so many supervisors want us sort of frightened all the time, wandering around sort of frightened and confused and bewildered and not really sure what's going on every hour of every day. But there is no doubt that success emerges through hard work. Yes, you can be lucky, and luck is important, but so is hard work. And if you think about it, every innovation in research and beyond begins with one idea that they want to make change, right? And we know that in our world, in our workplace, there's so many doubters that go, oh, look, that change won't work. No, no, no. I know you're proposing that for your PhD. No, that won't work. So you know what? Right now, today, make a decision. I want you to start. Make a decision to start. Do nothing else, just start. Don't be desperate. Don't be desperate. Pick one small task in your PhD, in your thesis, and start that task and finish that task. And acknowledge the success of completing that task. So what I'm talking about now is controlling what you can control. Make a decision to complete a task on your PhD and get on with it. You have complete control over selecting a task and finish it. Control what you can control, complete that task. You're bright, you're a hard worker, so select a task and finish it. Find clean air, as I often describe it. Work hard and start to gather up your achievements just one task at a time. Run in your own lane. Don't be interested in other people. Run your own lane. Except if you're in a gaslighting or bullying situation, which is our next stop. 7, name, label, and call out gaslighting and bullying. Toxicity and toxic supervisors use a lot of strategies: fear, neglect, narcissism, gaslighting, and bullying. And the goal of these tactics is to ensure that students are frightened and compliant and then complicit in the marginalisation of others. Gaslighting is used so frequently in toxic environments in so many workplaces because it is a proxy for mediocre or substandard supervisors. So what I mean is, if someone is in that brittle leadership position, so they've managed to get promoted to a position and they sort of know that they're a pretender, then the way they reinforce their power is to demean and ridicule the people around them who may find them out and who may indeed be better than they are. But somehow through patronage, through leverage, these people end up in positions of power. But once the incompetent are in positions of power, what do you do? What do you do? Particularly as academics, you see, we're assessed all the time. Our academic achievements right now are more visible than they've ever been in the history of our universities, because we've got all these proliferation of metrics. So just think about publications, for example. How many articles are you the sole author of? How many books have you written? How many articles are you the first author? How many articles are you the last author? How often are you the freeloading postdoc, somewhere in the middle, 6th author of 10 through your career? And then, of course, there are the social media metrics. How many followers have you got? Do they treat you respectfully, or do they relentlessly troll you? So in the good old days, an incompetent, which weren't the good old days, but in the good old days, an incompetent PhD supervisor could cruise a bit. They weren't really visible in the system. But now, people like me insert mandatory training into a supervisor's life, and students have to finish in 3 years, and you've got to be a good supervisor to get a student through in 3 years. And of course, students must present their research in public, so errors and problems are very, very visible. So we see through Google Scholar, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, who this person is. So if they've moved through their career as the fourth author of 8, and they remain freeloading postdocs through their students' work, then we can see it. We can see how they've got on. And we can see all their bluster about their ability as a supervisor, and yet they hold no teaching qualifications, and they've never written any SOTL, they've never written any SOS, Scholarship of Supervision. So, as you can see, the emperor, the supervisor in this case, has no clothes, no credibility, and they're hypocrites, and we can all see that. Therefore, how do these people get bright humans, that is you, students, to be supervised by them, to follow their leadership when they've actually underperformed through their entire career? And the answer is, and you've guessed it, gaslighting and bullying. Now, this has been studied, and can I say, for all my friends around the world in regional universities, and I've spent a lot of my life in regional universities around the world, bullying is worse in regional universities, and there are reasons for that. But gaslighting and bullying, their goal is to threaten, to intimidate, to coerce, and to harm. It is a repeated action, and it is systematic. The behaviours also become habitual. It's drip, 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 drip. The other characteristic of gaslighting is obviously a power imbalance. So when we think about gaslighting in a supervisory relationship, we're looking for an intention to harm. There must be an intention to harm, an imbalance in power, and also we're looking for repeated actions over time. Gaslighting has consequences, physical, mental, emotional consequences. It exists for the individuals who are actioning these behaviours because they are filled with jealousy and anxiety and fear and rage. And they've also got a lot of shame and anxiety, so they need to continually reinforce their self-esteem. So you can see why so many supervisory situations are gaslighting situations. Gaslighting, the tragedy is gaslighting in our workplaces is frequently invisible. HR finds it very, very difficult to address bullying and to address gaslighting. So the only way, to be frank with you, that we can assess it in an organisation like a university to see if there's a gaslighting issue is we look at the attrition rates for particular supervisors. So And again, it's an inelegant proxy, but because there's lots of reasons students are treated. But if we see one particular supervisor who in a 3-year period has multiple students leaving them, that needs some further investigation. Student after student after student whose lives are ruined, the system doesn't change, and the rule is, to be frank with you, if you are being bullied or you are in a gaslighting situation, there is one way to handle that, and you need to see somebody like me, and we need to get you out of that situation and move you to a new supervisory team. So if you've got gaslighting and bullying, all the other strategies we've talked about don't really work. We've just simply got to scoop you out of that situation. 8, make a decision. It's so easy to wander around life or wander around a PhD program like a bumper car. You know, you're sort of directed by hits and other people's behaviour, and you sort of have to move around other people's bad stuff. And this means in our life, when we live that sort of bumper car existence, we make decisions because we have to. We're just trying to avoid the pain that other people are causing us. So think about your life. This is a real moment here. Think about your life. Are you always in crisis? Are you endlessly being pushed into a corner so that you're forced to make a decision? So, if that's you, and that's been me for years of my life, can I say, we need to step out of the crisis. We need to remember that you matter. We need to remember that you are the star of your own life. Now, I've spent probably 15 years of my 30-year academic career bouncing around the expectations of other people. And often these people were bullying, self-absorbed, and really, really nasty. And these people would crawl over broken bodies to be successful. And they did. These people endlessly try and push us out of our lane and attempt to distract us or deflect us from our life and our goals, and they do a lot of damage. But if we sit in the quiet knowledge that we matter, and that mattering is not dependent on anybody else's views, then we're calm, because we're driven by evidence and not emotion. We can make clear and balanced decisions. Now, Christopher Gray described this as calm mattering, which I like a lot. And it can take a lifetime to reveal it. If we haven't got this calm mattering, then we spend our lives in jobs that we hate and we spend our lives in relationships that are doing us no harm and bring us no happiness or light. And he uses the powerful phrase, Gray. He states, quote, "Don't let life just happen to you." End of quote. 9, create a productive alignment for today. Today. One of the reasons I think so many of our lives have been out of focus in the last few years, obviously beyond COVID and wars and successions of pretty mediocre governments, is a misalignment between what you actually want in life and what you're spending time on. So your supervisor has lived a very, very different life from you. And we need to build and we need to understand the differences between the life your supervisor has lived and the life that you are living and will continue to live. And I think one of the reasons that life has got so tough beyond a global pandemic and shockingly harsh economic conditions is a misalignment between what we believe in, what we enjoy, and what's important to us. And so because those three things are not in alignment, we're confused a lot of the time. And that's why we're stuck. None of us are the same people that we were even 3 years ago. And so holding on to these sort of previous hopes and aspirations and motivations, completely pointless. Completely pointless. And all this big picture stuff, I go into so many training sessions where some random with post-it notes starts with a statement like, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Girlfriend, I don't know where I'm going to be in 30 days' time. 5 years is beyond any of our vistas. Think about the nonsense language that's being used. Strategic plans, visions, oh my goodness me. Most of us do not know what we're going to be doing next week, let alone what's going to happen in 5 years. And we need to know that your clock is different from your supervisor's clock. The understanding of time and what is an achievement and what is an outcome, all of those variables are different. What we have to focus on now is a short-term alignment between a particular goal and achieving it. All of us, all we've got at the moment, all of us, we've only got the short term. All the structures and the institutions that we've relied on, they are now unstable. So think about realigning your relationship with one task this week. Rather than sort of think about who am I going to be, where am I going to work, what's going to happen in 5 years, let it go. Let it go. Stop the doom scrolling. Stop the catastrophizing. Your supervisor is not a superhero that can rescue you. They can't even rescue themselves. And yes, we can mourn. We can miss what we've lost in our lives. And certainly the faith in leaders, in organisations, all of that's gone. And we don't know what we're going to replace those systems and those structures and those leaders with. But it doesn't mean that we are stuck in the present. So we need to repair and realign our supervisory relationship and our research career. And we do that by shortening timeframes. We create a much more direct line now between selecting a goal and achieving that goal. And yes, finally, 10. Come on. Give yourself credit for doing something extraordinary in difficult times. Starting a PhD is hard. Restarting it after a problem or catastrophe is even harder. So give yourself credit, please, for doing something extraordinary. You're doing something extraordinary in a culture of ignorance and fear. This new normal is not normal at all. You must control what you can control. You can't control your supervisor. You can't ever control another human being, but you can control how you use your time today. Be that person that reads. Come on. Be that person that writes. Be that person that believes in momentum. That if we get up in the morning and go through a routine, we will achieve a goal. Do not demand multitasking. All the research shows multitasking is rubbish. Stop the multiple goal stuff. Don't think in terms of work and life balance. It's rubbish. Give yourself a short-term goal and achieve it. Full stop. So therefore, what we're relearning, what we're realigning is the relationship between work, achievement and success. We need to start something and we need to finish something. The completion of these tasks really matters, so run in your own lane, even if your supervisory situation is difficult. Create short-term wins, short-term successes by realigning your goals and your outcome in the short term. Now, you may have been told that you're burnt out. You may have been told you got writer's block. You might have been told you're not resilient enough. You know what? Prove them wrong. Prove them wrong. Get up in the morning, construct a goal or a task, and complete it. You are in this PhD program for a reason. And our goal is to find that reason. So let's create for you a meaningful research story. And then we'll learn to share that with others to inspire them. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.